I know a lot of people probably tuned in to the Haas Ethan Klein debate, and I'm just going to give my 2 cents here very quickly. I truly do believe that Ethan Klein has a role to play, and he got exposed a few times. Now, granted, Haas made a claim about Ethan Klein being in conversation at one point or another with the ADL. There was a clip that was circulating online where Ethan said he did communicate with the ADL. What gets me as a Jewish American is that Ethan Klein is not helping the cause. I believe that he is making people like me less safe. And what also puzzles me is that he'll talk about his time in Tel Aviv and how everything was just great. There was nothing going on. Everything was fine. I had a great time. Yeah, there's atrocities going on, but I was great. I was awesome. Which speaks to the problem. And it speaks to the lack of empathy. Because if our neighbors are not safe, then are we safe? If they are being slaughtered, should we stick up for them? Or should we say, you know what, screw community. I don't really care about other people. I'm going to continue playing my role in this unjust apartheid society. And it was rather shocking to see this over and over and over again. Some people on Reddit will pay attention to his mannerisms. I think that makes you a very shallow person. I don't agree with any of those critiques. And I think if you're doing that, you have the comedic humor of a school child. But what I will say is over and over again, I thought Haas was quality, honestly, in his approach. And whether you agree or disagree with one of them, I think what kind of showed themselves was when Ethan would bring up something that is completely unrelated to the point of this entire debate, if you want to call it that. And it was, he's bringing up thumbnails of creators that Haas wasn't even on the video of, had no creative control over, and he's asking him about that. He's asking him about hummus. It just felt childish. And to go even further with that point, what felt unwarranted was when Haas would simply, and I've seen this on ESPN, when someone, let's say, is on NBA Today and Malika, or SportsCenter, when Malika Andrews will ask them a question, or Hannah Storm will ask them a question, they respond by saying, well, Malika, well, Hannah, and they just go into it, and that's how they reset. When Ethan would press Haas, he would say, well, Ethan, or Ethan, and then you'd go into it, and then you would hear Ethan Klein mock Haas for the way that he's answering. And if he, see, this is my problem personally with debates and why I don't partake. I have been offered to do them, and I just think it's a way to manufacture content over and over and over again in bad faith. Let me be very clear. What Ethan was doing when he didn't get an answer that he wanted to a question, he would conclude that point by saying, well, you know what? No one cares anyway. Let's move on. No. Let's move on. Let's move on. When he was the one who asked the question. So that I thought was wrong. And then another very, very weak point was when Ethan would continue mocking Haas when he was trying to get into the weeds in the debate and give detailed answers to any questions that Ethan had. And as someone who watched it and listened to it while I was working, I gotta say, man, it did not make him look good. It made him look very, very bad. It made him look like a very weak, childish individual. And one of the closing points was when Haas said, First off, Ethan pretty much said that he thinks Haas is a POS, something of that sort. And Haas said to him, look, man, I hope that, we found some common ground, and I hope that good ideas were exchanged. But then he said something after trying to end on a high note, something of that sort, which was, Dan, who works for Ethan Klein, Dan, he needs you more than you need him. And as someone who is online, admittedly too much, we have seen this podcast, H3, and this show go from an incredible, inclusive, hilarious thing where a lot of people have fun to the numbers going down. That is just what I've personally seen. The live stream numbers were massive. Excuse me. But I think how Bill Parcells said, you're only as good as your wins, something of that sort. I think the numbers speak for themselves. And it is sad to see, because I did like Ethan Klein, and then he exposed himself. So I'm saddened. But I also think that it is wise of us to use our platforms for the greater good, to speak up for our fellow man, and in the end, for peace to ring true. It was not a good look for Ethan. I thought Haas was very measured. I thought his approach was fantastic. And in the face of a man throwing every insult under the sun at him, he remained very, very composed. However you feel about this, if that is not your takeaway, then I truly do not know which debate that you are watching. I wish both of them the absolute best. I hope Ethan Klein starts to see what is going on a little bit more. But if it is because of his history, his family, if it's because of, the military that some people may have served in, that he feels he has to bend the knee in this way, then it is what it is. I don't really have anything else to say on that front. But if you want to watch the debate, it is live on YouTube everywhere. And yeah, I just thought Haas was very measured, and he took a lot of insults over and over again that were not warranted. And he still looked pretty good. There were some weak spots that Haas may have shown as well. But overall, I didn't feel as though it was productive. I felt as though it was a 4-hour plus session of trying to have one person see the reality when they refuse to. And it's a very interesting position that Ethan is in, because he acknowledges the slaughter that's going on, but it feels as though it's just on a very surface level way of approaching what's going on by saying, well, I acknowledge it. I'm a good one, right? Which is it's just weak.
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.